tell us briefly about the book Despised and your basic theory about how modern Labor dislikes its working class people. Tell us your theory there.
Well, it's written really from my own vantage point as somebody who's been active on the left and inside the Labour movement in Britain for about 25 years. And it's become increasingly clear to me that the movement itself and the Labour Party was alienating many of its working class voters. Its core-based, blue-collar, working class Britain just stopped voting for the Labour Party in large numbers. And that was largely because the party itself endorsed values that were not the values of working class people. And the party nowadays is largely a party of student radicals and social activists and middle class liberals living in our fashionable cities. And as the party has changed and as its priorities has changed and it's become much more woke and it's become immersed in the creed of identity politics, so its traditional small c conservative working class voters who were once upon a time its backbone have drifted away from the party. And that resulted in what we saw in December 2019 in Britain, in the Labour Party's annihilation at a general election, having lost a number of working class seats that previously had voted Labour since time immemorial, really.
Well, the end of the Jeremy Corbyn era, has that seen an improvement in Labour in the UK? Have they come a little bit more to the centre and embraced their traditional roots?
Well, I think that's something certainly that Sir Keir Starmer, the new leader of the Labour Party, is trying to achieve. I think the real difficulty for Keir Starmer is he knows what needs to be done, and I think he knows where the party needs to be in order to become an electoral force again. But largely, the party doesn't want to go with him. I mean, we've seen, for example, recently, Keir Starmer has emphasised the importance of patriotism, has emphasised the importance of family, of community, all of the kind of small c conservative values that go down well in working class communities. So he started emphasising those themes in an attempt to reconnect with the party's traditional base, but it's created outpourings of anger amongst much of the party's activists and the party's representatives, who have kind of accused him of endorsing some kind of far-right or fascist manifesto, because occasionally now he'll give a speech with the Union Jack in the background. So that demonstrates really just how far so much of the party is away from grassroots working class people in this country.
Paul, you tell a fantastic story in your book about your own life, your own biography, coming from a working class suburb and seeing in real time what happened as Labour abandoned its traditional constituency and became the party of mass migration, the party of globalization, and eventually the party of the very well-off, which we kind of saw with Tony Blair and continuing on through today with the fights over Brexit. How exactly is it, because I suspect a lot of people here will identify similar things having happened here in Australia with Labor, that Labor came to abandon the very people who put it into office in the first place?
Because I think as the party itself became much more middle class and much more rooted in our fashionable cities, in our university cities, particularly London-centric, so it began to look upon ordinary blue-collar working class communities in post-industrial Britain, in provincial Britain, areas, you know, where there's often a sense of belonging, a sense of place, a sense of community, areas that are often imbued with small c conservative values, even though they're traditionally always voted Labour. And it began to look at those areas as somehow benighted and being filled with, you know, embarrassing elderly relatives almost. You know, they wanted their votes at election time, but they didn't particularly want to be seen in public with them. And, you know, it's almost as if so much of the party now feels that it's kind of imbued with the principles of the Enlightenment, whereas the working class needs to be dragged from its ignorance. And people are not stupid. They saw that patronising attitude. They felt it in those communities. They saw that the Labour Party now didn't really speak for them, didn't really look like them, didn't really sound like them, didn't share the same priorities. And so millions of working class people either started abstaining or voting for populist parties, or at the last election, you know, they broke the taboo of voting in their millions for the Conservative Party. So there's been a real shift in British politics over the last couple of decades.
Paul, we wanted to specifically talk to you about Batley School. You wrote about this the other day, and this is the story we covered last week on the show, where basically a teacher lost his job. It's the old story to do with Muhammad and Muslim sensibilities. Tell us the story and tell us your concerns about what happened to the teacher and where were the unions to support the teacher in his hour of need. Tell us the story and your take on it.
Well, the story, so far as we can gather, the information that's in the public domain, is that at a school in Yorkshire, in the north of England, a teacher, as part of a structured course, showed the controversial Muhammad cartoons. Now, all the information suggests that was not done in any sort of gratuitous way or in a way that was deliberately designed to offend, but was just imparted as part of that particular lesson. And then when that information got out into the local community, there was, frankly, a mob turned up at the school gates demanding that in some cases, that the teacher be sacked. There were all sorts of threats to the teacher. He's kind of gone into hiding now. He was hung out to dry by the head teacher of his school, who said that a mistake had been made and apologised profusely. Local members of parliament apologised as well and said this was a terrible thing that happened. And it's almost as if, frankly, we've got a blasphemy law in this country, which of course we haven't, but we might as well have had, because what we've seen is a situation where somebody who was simply just trying to educate his children, his students, in the way of free expression and free inquiry, has now gone into hiding, and large parts of the establishment have completely capitulated rather than stand by the teacher and say, actually, we don't have a blasphemy law, we defend free expression, we defend free inquiry, and if you threaten this guy's life or threaten him with violence, we're going to arrest you. But that hasn't happened, and that's outrageous.
Well, yeah, just on that, the teacher's told his family that he fears that he'll never be able to return to his home, let alone his job. He thinks he's going to be killed. Where are the teachers' unions? You're a proud trade unionist. Where are they coming out in support of this teacher and standing with him and ensuring that his job is secure and that it's clear that the bulk of the community, including the Muslim community, is with him?
Well, very simply, they're nowhere. They've issued a couple of mealy-mouthed statements which really didn't defend the teacher at all, didn't defend the principle of free expression and free inquiry. And I think that's a combination of cowardice on the one hand, because I think, and as you say, Rita, I'm a proud trade union man, and I don't like publicly criticising trade unions, but sometimes I think it's merited. The first thing they should have done is said, we defend that teacher at that school and all other teachers who are simply trying to do their job in a structured way and to teach their students about religion. But instead of that, they completely abandon him. And I think also it's partly to do with this creed of identity politics, where so many people on the left and the trade union movement these days automatically see minority communities as victims, inherent victims who need to be protected. And if that means also having their feelings ring-fenced and their opinions and religion ring-fenced from scrutiny, and not doing anything that might be deemed insulting, then they go along with that. And I think what that has done is created a chilling atmosphere where people are effectively bullied into silence rather than defending the right of everybody to do what that teacher did.